Ethiopia, it is called Abay. Every country name it differently. This transboundary river is commonly known as Nile. It has been and is still the source of the livelihood for millions of Africans, mainly in the north and eastern part of Africa. It is also the basis for economic growth and advancement. Unlike the time in the past, the utilization and implementation of electrical projects and dams, mainly the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, it is creating fierce disputes among the riparian countries, especially Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan. Most riparian countries actually agree the fair utilization and distribution of this resource. What does history tell us about Nile and its utilization? How do we evaluate the current situation pertaining to Nile? Where are we heading? And what is expected from the government and the people of the riparian countries of Nile, especially Ethiopia? These consecutive programs do have adequate answers to these and similar questions. This is Shimelis Bonsa at the newly launched media, the Eastern Media. Please stay with our program for the latest information on this market. Hello and welcome our viewers. This is Shimelis Bonsa Gulema, the host of the Eastern Media, and in Amharic it's called Misrak Magananya. Today I have a very special or prominent scholar of Ethiopia, Shimelis Bonsa. He is an associate professor of modern African history and politics at Stony Brook University in New York. Shimelis Bonsa has, according to his files I have seen, Shimelis Bonsa has a PhD in urban studies from the University of California, Los Angeles. He was a lecturer in Ethiopia and African history in the history department of Addis Ababa University from 1990 to 2003. He has been working on issues of migration, urbanization and urban ethnicity, urban economy, gender and democracy, and the media. His research interest also includes the study of urban culture, ethnicity and nationalism, and transnational identities. He has participated in international conferences, published a number of articles and monograph on the private media. He is also a member of professional associations, a member of different forums working on Africa, Dr. Shimelis' works have been published as monographs, book chapters, and articles in the Journal of Ethiopian Studies, Journal of North East African Studies, and African Review of Books, to list a few. He is now completing a book manuscript on the relationship between city, state, and nation in modern Ethiopia. Apart from his academic life, Dr. Shimelis is passionate about education, environment, and social justice. These are all what I have found in your, online links and all that. I don't know if I missed some ideas or on your biography, except maybe one part where it says that you have completed a book on manuscript. What does the progress look like on that respect? Let's start with that.
Okay. Thank you, Shimelis, for having me on your platform, and thank you for the introduction. The book project is part of my research on the relationship between city, state, and nation in contemporary modern Ethiopian history, with the focus on the 20th century. So it is near completion. It would be called City as Nation. So it shows how city have become the most important center for the making of modern nations, the rise of modern nationalism in the Ethiopian context. So hopefully within a year or so, or maybe less than that, will come out and be accessible to those interested in Ethiopia and urban studies.
So it's very interesting to start with that point of discussion, because I know from early times people follow rivers, because our area of discussion for today is the river we call in Ethiopia Abay, and some places it's a Blue Nile, but it's very famously known in the world as a Nile. So we'll try to discuss different ideas regarding this. So your research, how could you correlate first with this topic, like with Nile, cities and water? Let's start with that.
Oh yeah, there are many ways in which there is a relationship between cities and waters. In fact, civilization itself began in areas where there are river systems. So some of the oldest civilizations in the world, like the Egyptian civilization, or the civilization in Mesopotamia, or the Chinese civilization, or the Indian civilization, originated around major river systems. The Nile in Egypt, the Tigris and the Euphrates in Mesopotamia, in what is today Iraq, or the Indus Ganges rivers in India, the Yellow River or the Yangtze River in China. So river systems are so crucial to the rise of cities, which in turn became the birthplace of civilizations. Even in the Ethiopian context, if you follow the history of urbanization, we do see the connection between the choice of a city, a town for settlement, and the accessibility to waters, the accessibility to a river, for instance. In the case of Addis Ababa, for instance, Addis Ababa is discussed in connection with its significance in defense of considerations of the Ethiopian Empire in the 19th century. Meaning it was chosen because of defensive reasons. But one thing that is also very important, not discussed in detail about the beginning of the city, is the importance of river systems. So there are more than 5 different river systems flowing into the city from the mountains surrounding the Addis Ababa. So rivers are so integrally, deeply embedded, entrenched in any major civilization of the ancient world, but also the modern societies. So
Interesting,
yeah.
very interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Shimelis, shedding light on that. Um, Water is life, they say, and rivers like the Nile are symbolic to the respective countries or continent. For example, as you've said, Mississippi to the United States and Volga to Russia. So is Nile to Ethiopia and eastern and northeastern countries. Uh, was Nile really a source of life to Ethiopians? Can we say that? Because Ethiopia is our center of focus today in our discussion. So, can we say, was Nile really a source of life to Ethiopians? What does the Nile really mean to Ethiopians and other riparian countries, mainly Egypt and Sudan?
Yeah.
And what does life without water mean to countries? I think a country without a port is like a person without a neck, they say.
Hmm.
And but that usually applies to oceans or seas. Could we see
Yeah.
that same anecdote or that same argument for the River Nile, Dr. Shimelis?
Yes, meaning we can say that. We can say the river Abay, as we call it in Ethiopia,
Mm-hmm.
or the Nile outside of the country, internationally, is so important to the countries, both in the upper stream countries, countries which are the source of the Nile waters, but also downstream countries, and probably more so in downstream countries like Sudan and Asia, because they don't produce the waters, because most of the waters come from other areas, and more importantly from Ethiopia. Ethiopia contributes about 86% of all the waters that go to Egypt and Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
So if you this, so take for instance Egypt, and then I will go back to Ethiopia. But Egypt, meaning there is 2,500 years ago, the father of history, the Greek historian Herodotus, described Egypt as a gift of the Nile,
Mm-hmm.
the gift of the Nile, and this is something that was said 2,500 years ago,
Yeah.
and it still is true. Still is true. I mean, you cannot imagine, you cannot think of Egypt or Egyptian civilization without the Nile River, without the Nile. So Egypt is truly the gift of the Nile River. The entire spectrum of Egyptian civilization, whether it is its philosophy, mythology, religion, social, cultural life, all are connected to the Abay River, to the Nile River.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the birth of Egyptian calendar, for instance, the ancient Egyptian calendar was depended on the seasonal rise and fall of the river, the Nile River, which largely is connected to the seasonal fluctuation of the Abay River in
Mm-hmm.
the Ethiopian mountains. Any discussion about Egyptian history or Egyptian culture, Egyptian social life, Egyptian civilization would not be complete. Would not be complete without reference to the Nile River. So the
Mm-hmm.
Nile is integral, so deeply integral to anything that is Egypt, both in the past and in the present.
Mm-hmm.
For Ethiopia, meaning Ethiopia's social cultural production, is also again dependent to a large extent on the Abay River. Abay is so important to Ethiopian social cultural life. You can see that in the music
Mm-hmm.
and the poetry, the
Yeah.
poems, the poetry, the mythology created around the Nile River, the mythology which is part of